Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is the CCM ASV Pro Total Custom Hockey Skate Review. Full disclosure, CCM sent me these skates last year. They sent me to their hockey house in Toronto. I happened to very luckily get scanned for a pair of skates and they sent them to me. This is what came out of it. So CCM probably would have wanted this review to come out a little more sooner when the ASV Pro is more relevant, because this has been out for a while now and the new jet speed's out, and I think the next one of these. But I've had a lot of experience with custom skates. As you can see, trues, a lot of custom trues. And I've also had experience with CCM skates. It wasn't on this one, it was on the other one, where they delaminated on the side of them for me. So I didn't want to do something really quick and do like a quick review, like, oh, this is the most comfortable thing ever. I wanted to see how long these hold up, because I'll kind of talk about that with the trues, and to see if I've noticed anything with me using them. So I've had these for over a year now and have been using them multiple times a week, every single week. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how, one, they fit, perform, and the durability of them so far, and some of the challenges that I kind of experienced with them, and we'll kind of talk about that. First of all, huge thanks to CCM for the review. Not really sorry that this one's coming out later, because I really want to do a real custom long-term type review for these instead of just doing something quick. You can see all the influencers kind of talk about stuff really quickly when they get it for free. I don't really consider myself an influencer, and I want to actually review equipment, so I think this is kind of due for being a little bit longer. Anyways, what we're going to do here is we're going to cover the scanning process a little bit. You can see those online as well, so I'll just talk about what I did and kind of what I looked out for. I'm also going to talk about my skate history. So I mentioned I had these AS1s in the past, and I also have a bunch of true custom skates here as well, and I've done a bunch of reviews on them. And we're going to talk about kind of my pain points in this in terms of how to get dialed in for a fit, because I had to do a few things. You can see a Bauer speed plate here, so we'll kind of talk about some things in there and how I managed to kind of dial exactly in what I like to get it really comfortable. We'll go into this a lot, to be honest. So all right, so first I'm going to start with kind of my skate overview and why I've been in custom skates for a while. So I had these, which are 8.5 double E. So I have an interesting foot. I can tell you kind of exactly what's wrong with my foot, and when I got scanned for these and what the scan kind of told me, I had an interesting conversation with the person at CCM who was doing it, and where he said a lot of people who do custom skates could tell you exactly their size of their foot basically when they get scanned, and they can tell you exactly the problems. And that's kind of what I did. If I had a perfect skate fit for me, it's basically an 8D heel. It is an 8.5 triple E or a 9 double E kind of forefoot, because I need that wider. It's basically a 9 double E depth, or like it was that old Nexus fit where I need a lot of depth right here. Just my instep on the inside really comes out. So if I don't have a lot of depth here, I end up getting a ton of lace. But then the rest of my foot doesn't have a ton of volume. So I don't have a really big foot, and kind of around here needs to be a bit tighter. And also an 8.5 length. So I have an interesting foot that doesn't really fit into retail skates all that well, to be honest. I had Bauer 8.5 EEs, and they were too tight. My foot would go numb all the time. Went to FT1s. Absolutely love the skate. Did a review of them. Foot would be numb all the time after wearing them. Wore these, and these were kind of close, but still they weren't. Like right here was just too tight. I would keep the laces here so loose, but it's just way too tight on my forefoot, and I would end up getting some lace bite on this too. So even this skate, which was CCM's kind of wider option and kind of had more volume in here, just didn't really work for my foot right. I got scanned and I ended up going to True, and it was the only time I ever had comfortable skates is when I went custom. That's why we have everything here. So the other thing about these old AS1s I want to call out is I had some delamination right here, and this wasn't from a skate cut or anything. It's like right along the graphic point, and you can see it following up here, like where it happened, and that peeled apart. That is another one of the reasons why I wanted to do a long-term review on these, because I had these for not that long of a time and they started doing that, so I wanted to be sure I didn't have issues with these. Now my producer has a pair of SuperTacks, and she has had them for years, since like a year after SuperTacks came out, and they've been totally fine, and she plays like 3 times a week on them and has had them since then, and like I said, they've been totally fine. But I wanted to make sure these wouldn't replicate with this, as well as why I wanted to do that long-term thing. So while I can get into retail skates, and I've worn retail skates to do reviews on and stuff, they really never fit my foot properly. And I did that whole how to fit actual hockey skates video, which I suggest you check out if you haven't before. I know kind of how my foot fits, and if I want my foot to not be absolutely numb by the end of a skate and with massive pain, I really can't be in a retail skate. Just that's it. Coretech, which are Coreshorts, and people have heard of these before. They were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Coretech shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time. So now that we got the retail skates out of the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about my custom True skates here, and to get an idea of why I have a lot of True skates. So there's 4 custom pairs of True skates here and 1 custom pair of CCM. So first of all, the very first custom pair of skates I ever got were these Trues. This was like right after True bought out VH and started making these at retail. I bought these for goalie skates. I wore them a lot. So I wore these basically for 6 months, 4 times a week, which is a decent amount. And they were fantastic for about the first 3 months. And then something in them kind of just broke down, where I have massive foot pain on like right here and right here if I wear them for more than like 30 minutes. I wear these inside my basement now whenever I do puck machine stuff like that, so I don't kill my actual goalie blades, and my foot starts to hurt after a while. I did everything to try to fix this. I tried to rebake them. I tried different insoles everywhere. I actually currently use these insoles, which came with these custom skates, in them right now. But eventually this boot, something in here just ended up breaking down on me after about 3 months of 4 times a week, and the comfort just went away. I tried everything and I just couldn't get it to work. I tried different socks and I would just always have that foot pain on both feet, basically right here. It just feels like this part, it doesn't even feel soft because I can't squish it in or anything, but it feels like this part just kind of rolled over itself and you're just cramping my foot in too much. And I even tried to stretch this part out to give me more room in there, and it just didn't work. When I had these originally, they were the most comfortable skate I ever had. It was the first skate I ever wore where I didn't have numbness in my feet, didn't have lace bite issues. They were absolutely perfect for a little bit, and then that kind of breaking down, that was kind of it of them. And that's why they're kind of now just my testing skates. So when I do stuff on my synthetic ice, they're relegated to that. After that skate, we went to this one, which was their updated one. It had some new things on it with a different carbon. It was supposed to be lighter. This one was honestly the tightest and probably the best fitting skate I've ever had. This was 100% a pro fit. So I talked about that in my fit video where this thing is super tight. I had to wear certain socks with this skate in order to be able to wear them. If I wore too thick of a sock, I would have massive foot pain on this from the width, and it would just be way too tight all around. And I had to put super feet in these, which is these, because they were basically so short. They were that pro fit. If I didn't, my toes would end up bunching and hitting the ends here. So with super feet, it kind of pulls your toes back a little bit, and it allowed me to wear them. They fit my foot absolutely fantastic. They were really, really good for that, and they were really solid for that. But we come to the issue I had with True skates, and while they didn't break down on the sides in terms of comfort wise, you can see the issues right here. So you can actually, and like kind of down here, I can push on this back piece and the carbon, and you can see the carbon right here flexing. So it really feels like this kind of heel part is basically broken out. Now you could repair this and fix this probably relatively easy. I don't know if True would fix it for a fee or whatever, because these are really old. And actually it's even worse down here. That's the really bad one right there, and you can easily push in on that and see it flex. And I take care of my gear. I don't know if this was a shot. I doubt it. I don't tend to block shots from my heel, but that is totally cracked, and you can totally push that in. So you have some durability concerns there. That's why I had a really hard time recommending True skates. Then we get to these, which are my current goalie skates, and I ended up buying these because my other goalie skates from True ended up breaking down. And then I also bought CCM AS3 Pros, and they just didn't fit my foot. They were a retail skate, didn't fit my foot whatsoever, had massive pain in them. So then I'm like, okay, I have to buy these customs. So I ended up buying these customs, and these ones have held up a lot better than my previous ones. These ones I've had zero issues with. I don't have any width issues with. I've worn these for I think 3 seasons now. Last year I think was 5 times a week for goalie. Year before was 4. This year is 3. So these have held up a lot better. So these have been a lot more impressive, and I haven't had any issues with them besides the standard like crappy finish right here. But none of the carbon anywhere is breaking on me and collapsing and falling apart, so it's doing its job. And comfort on these has been fantastic. I could wear any skate I want. To be honest, these ones feel a little bit wider than what I would like. I can wear thicker socks with these without a problem, which isn't a bad thing, but it's definitely a lot of a wider build than what my player skates were, which isn't an awful thing for goalie skates, but it's something I definitely noticed. But comfort on these have been excellent. The tongue sucked, so I switched them to the old one, but that's just a tongue option thing. Overall, I can't really complain about these, and they've been fine. Finally, we get to these True Catalyst Pros. And I was, just to be totally honest, done buying True skates for player when my other ones broke apart. I was like, well, I'll just keep using them until they break. But then True decided to send me a pair of these, get me fit in them. And True says this build is similar to what CCM's is, where it's not built from the ground up, and it's just they take a shell, mold it around, whatever, and it's not like all layered individually. I'm not getting into it, and people will always have their marketing thing saying which one's more custom and which one isn't. I will say this one is supposedly their spec down custom, so not a full custom. The fit on this was very different than what was on my True customs, the TF customs, and the ones before that. And this one fit pretty differently, and I had to kind of do some things with insoles and stuff like that to make it work right. It wasn't as good as a custom in terms of overall wrap and everything, and like actual perfect size, but it was extremely comfortable and probably the most comfortable True skate for player especially that I've ever worn. I liked them in that sense, but I also had some pretty glaring durability issues where the shell was cracking on it, and I don't know if that's the outer shell or the actual inner shell. It doesn't really move, but you can see it cracked on there. So again, another pair of custom skates that have durability issues, which leads me to why this one I wanted to do for a while. After seeing all my experience with Trues, it kind of makes you ask, well, why didn't you buy a Bauer or CCM custom skate to replace those True ones? And honestly, the answer is I've heard enough negative experiences from both companies that I really didn't want to drop the thousands of dollars it was to basically test it out. I heard bad experiences from the Bauer ones, and I also heard bad experience for the CCM ones from people I really trust at a couple stores, people I worked with at the time, where they would just say, yes, this wasn't really a full custom fit. Here's what they did. You can tell they did this. I need something longer here. So really they just did this and this, and it wasn't really a custom skate, and it wasn't comfortable, and it was terrible. Kind of questioning some things there, and didn't want to spend the money, to be totally honest, and take the plunge there. Luckily for me, someone at CCM was generous at a point and decided to let me get a custom pair of these skates for free. So huge thanks for that. And here we are with them. And to be honest, I am extremely grateful for that, because I don't think I will ever get out of these skates unless something catastrophic happens to them and they break, or if I get sent another pair to do a review on, because I can't justify getting out of these, to be totally honest. For the scanning process, I just did the CCM scan. Everyone kind of knows it. You stand on it. I'm kind of giving a little demonstration here. I have a lot of experience with True skates. If you haven't noticed, for scans, every one of those was a different scan. And obviously, I've scanned CCM and Bauer skates a bunch before as well. I know exactly how I want my foot to end up being scanned and what shape I want it to be. So some people, they say stand up or whatever. True always tells you to go like knee forward on your foot, like so you're in like a athletic stance and your kind of knees are bent with your knee kind of going forward. I basically did that when I got scanned for this, because I wanted to make sure my foot stayed collapsed and not fully flattened out, and I wanted it to be in that athletic stance, because I could always pull the super feet on if I need a little bit extra length to kind of pull it back and to get that foot position I want. Also, that way my foot should be not as spread out on the toes, so it would be fit on the proper part and not just like really wide and sloppy. I want it to be tighter. When I did this scan, they asked about a bunch of things. They said, what are your previous skates? What are your current skates? What do you need to do? Which is obviously part of the process. And I did ask for a little tiny bit of room in the toes, and that's more that not pro fit. That's more that comfort fit. And I talked about that in my skate fit video, and these hit that absolutely perfectly. So I absolutely love that as well, because my toes aren't jamming up there. I don't need super feet in them. Now, since I mentioned super feet and we have the speed plate here, I'm going to talk about my journey of fit into here and some things that I noticed. This skate came with two different insoles. This, which is basically a rivet cover, and it's just like a foam pad with some, like, you can see the material on it, felt almost like material on it. And then they had their ortho moves, which are these, which you can Velcro in bigger arch support in here. I tried both of these in this skate, and I had foot pain in my skate. I had foot pain everywhere in my skate. It was very odd. Previously with custom skates, I didn't really have to dial in all that much besides using like a different insole, like super feet to pull my toes back, or getting rid of like the genetics insole that's on the True one because it was too thick. With this one, I had issues with this one and with this one on, honestly, width, which was surprising. Both of those insoles, I had pain basically right here and right here on both skates. And generally that's a width issue. If it was just like kind of over here, you might think it's a bit of an arch, but right here is where I had issues with. Something about it, I don't know if the thickness, it can't really be the thickness, because look how thin that is. Same with this. This is super thin, and it's like super, like you're gonna squish that after a while. So something about them just didn't work with me, and I had issues basically right here and right here, it was really uncomfortable. I kept trying every insole I could find to see if it made any difference on there, because at first I was like, wow, these don't work. Tried one of these, which I still think is CCM's best insole offering they ever did before. It was their Curetech sole ones, and these were absolutely fantastic. Didn't help my issue there though. Tried Superfeet as well. Again, did not help my issue somehow. Pain point on the sides and everything was still happening, and it did not feel good. As well, Superfeet kind of props you up ever so slightly on the heel, and that actually made lace bite a little bit worse on these, which I'll get to in a second. Finally, I went to the Bauer speed plate, which people might be like, wow, why are you wearing speed plates in these skates? Once I put this speed plate in there, every issue I had with this skate just went totally out the window in terms of fit on the sides and comfort and everything. I don't know what it is, but putting this thing in there made these the most comfortable skates I have and have ever worn. And I'm just like, oh, okay, it works. And the other thing too, these are heat moldable, so you should mold them. They get really soft. You put them in your skate and then it bakes your foot. I didn't even mold these to the skate. Now, I was in a desperate attempt of, I'm just going to try to see if it works. I'm not going to mold it, just going to put it in there. Maybe it will help, maybe it won't help, whatever. Put these in there, and all of my issues just disappeared, and the comfort was just off the charts. I remember talking to a guy I skate with who's a huge gear nut like me. I just started laughing like, man, my custom CCM skates, I put Bauer insoles in them, and they are perfect. And it's the weirdest thing. This insole just made a night and day difference in terms of this. These honestly just felt too tight, almost like a retail skate over here. And I was like, oh man, this really is just a retail skate. Put that in, absolutely perfect, unbelievable. One other thing about that, because I've talked about this previously in custom skate reviews or skate reviews in general, and you would think if I had a width issue, maybe it was a socks thing. So I talked about socks in the past where if you have a thicker sock like this, it's not that comfortable in the skate. And sometimes when the skate is so tight, you need a really thin one or no sock. These ones are relatively thick. They're super comfortable. I wear them for my goalie skates, but I need a bit more room in them. And if I wear these in certain skates, like my Bauer Connects, it absolutely kills my foot because they're too big. But then when I go to something thinner, which is these Cutshield ones, and you can kind of see my kind of fingers coming through this, and this is just an overall thinner sock part here, I would have less issues in those. I tried both those thicker socks and the thin socks in these CCM skates, and neither really made a difference on there. So that kind of led me to believe it wasn't necessarily a width issue, because if I could just go on a smaller width like this, I even wore barefoot too, maybe that would fix my issues, and it didn't. The insole is what did that. Now, this is a very easy transition into Cutshield. I've had people ask me over and over again of what socks I always recommend, and I've been using Cutshield for a while now. I have multiple stuff from them. So Cutshield is a company out of Canada that makes cut resistant socks, and these are their Pro Air 6, which means it's an ANSI level 6 for cut resistance on here. They also make pretty awesome slash guards and wrist guards. You see them in the NHL a lot. Basically look for this gray material under players' gloves and under their elbow pads, and it's probably Cutshield. This version of it has an Evo Shield piece in, so you have slash guard and it's skate cut resistant. This stuff is fantastic and I absolutely love it. I've been using it for a long time. Did a full review of it up there, so you can check it out. But I now have a coupon code with Cutshield, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out the link in the description to Cutshield, buy some socks, which I think are honestly one of the better socks on the market. I absolutely love them. They're pretty thin and they are cut resistant, and they're not too hot either. And I have no issues with these whatsoever on my custom skates where I need a really thin one. You can see how you can basically see my skin through them, so they are thin on here. And this part doesn't really feel or get that hot compared to some of those Kevlar socks. So I absolutely love this material. So check them out. I always recommend them. Use my coupon code. You get 25% off, and it helps support the channel so I can keep making videos and making more content. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out links in the description to Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything through there comes again back into the channel, so I can make more content and doing real reviews. Now, the other part on these skates that I had to change and dial in is the tongue. Now, this is the option when you order these skates. You can select the tongue. I went with the default tongue, which is this one. It's just their felt one. It has made in Canada there, and it has some padding right here, and it's a little bit thicker than what this one is. And I use this, and it has this replaceable tongue system, which I hated on the previous CCM player skates. I thought it was an awful idea. I'm like, why would you need to do this? I'm so thankful this exists though. This tongue allowed me to really, again, dial in this fit. Now, I am not going to count this against CCM in terms of a custom skate, because because you, the person who's buying and using them, gets to choose which tongue you like. My only concern is really, you don't really know how these custom skates are going to fit until you get them. If you've never worn a CCM custom skate like I haven't, when I got these, I thought, well, I'll just get the medium tongue. I've never really had tongue issues with companies before. The normal felt ones have always worked for me, so I'll just go with that route. Unfortunately, this caused a ton of lace bite, and it was not comfortable. I had to tie a very certain way. I used panther teeth to help a little bit. I had that experience in the past with true skates. I would end up getting lace bites with the customs after a while, but this one I had it right away, and honestly it was uncomfortable and I couldn't tighten them as tight as I wanted to. In comes these XS tongues. I bought these on my own on the side. These are the slims. I was trying to buy the thicks as well to try both, but the thick wasn't in stock at the time, so I bought these slims, put these in, and all my issues with my lace bite went away. I bought these about 6 months ago and I've used them ever since, and they've been amazing in terms of comfort, and all my lace bite issues went away. You can see the thickness difference between them. It doesn't look like it's all that much, but this material, just like being slightly thinner, just ended up helping so much. And then maybe it's part of this being a little bit thicker. So you can see how this one's kind of segmented and this one kind of feels like it's a little bit thicker. Just has worked so much better. It's been absolutely fantastic. And this, again, fixed all of my fit issues with this skate and with the lace bite. So one of the cool things about these tongues too is they have these little heat transfer numbers that you can get. So you have to go to your local retailer and you can get these transferred onto your tongue itself right here. So you have some customization options on them, because other companies are doing that, but I like how that is an option just on the actual tongue accessory that they sell. Now with this tongue, one other thing I want to call out for, I love the inner material on this compared to, yes, this is just a felt, but this is kind of like a nice material that feels pretty durable here, kind of similar to what CCM has used in the past on the sides. But on right here, you can see how it's just ripped off. Now this happened within games. This was like instant. The other side too. So this little leather piece right here just instantly ripped off. And when you put that kind of right here, you can see where that ends up rubbing right there, and it just wore out. It happened on both of them right away. So kind of disappointing. And this one even is going through that layer a little bit more as well. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm okay with that, because that is just, it's kind of superficial, and these tongues are replaceable, and I have worn them quite a bit so far. So even though those worn out really quick, it would be nicer if it was a more durable material there, but it's not that bad of a thing. But more importantly, this tongue has totally fixed my fit on here, and now these, I'm happily to say, are the most comfortable skates I've ever worn, and I absolutely love them for that. I never have to worry if I have foot pain. I never have to worry about after a skate sitting on the bench in the locker room for 20 extra minutes because my feet are totally numb and I can't stand up on them yet. I don't worry about that anymore with these skates. They are absolutely fantastic. I am absolutely in love with them. Yes, I did have to dial some things in with the insole, the tongue, but you're kind of gonna have to do that with most skates anyways. I have a hard time believing things will always be perfect out of the box. I've had to use different insoles before on my true skates, and I have swapped tongues before on my true skates as well. So this isn't a thing where it's only a CCM thing where this happened. It's happened to me in the past, and once I dialed that in, these are easily the most comfortable skates I've worn, which is saying a lot because I've had 4 pairs of custom trues before. Now, since we kind of just talked about the durability of this tongue, I'm going to talk about the rest of the durability on the skate that I've noticed so far. On the insides, you can see there is some wear on the wear guard right there, and on the other side as well as right here. So you can see this is totally where my tongue is rubbing everywhere and rubbing right there. When we put that tongue in, you can see, hopefully this comes out on camera for the contrast, but that is basically the rub point of the tongue. And we can also see it on the other one as well. And you can see it over here as well. So obviously that is a direct rub point of my tongue, and maybe they could put a little plastic layer or something on here as well as this material to try to make it wear a little bit less. This is going to happen. I've noticed it on like every skate I have. All my custom trues have that as well. It's just, it is what it is. These have been worn a while, but this wear guard is working pretty well intended. This would be a lot worse if it wasn't here like that, and it would be a lot more open. But maybe they could add, kind of they did it on their goalie pads where they added a little plastic kind of covering on it, and it's clear, you can't really tell, but you could kind of pull it off on the goalie pads. If you added that to there, maybe you get a little bit more durability out of that. And maybe if you could really wrap this piece so it kind of seals all the way over, and maybe sew it in a different, so it's just not like an edge part right there, maybe that would be a little bit nicer as well. But overall, They've been pretty good for that. For the actual shell and everything, the only wear spot is basically right here that I can really tell, and this is from my shot blockers. While I've used this skate a while, it is pretty pristine because honestly I do wear shot blockers, and it really does help with obviously puck impact and stuff like that here. So everything on here has been really solid, and you have a little wear point right there and a little wear point right there, but everything else is pretty good overall, and it's pretty impressive. And when we look on the other skate, it's very similar too. You have a little bit marks up here and on the toe, but everything else looks fantastic, and the structure is 100% solid and really good on it. There is kind of some, like, it looks like a little bit of a carbon bump or something right here. I'm trying to get that on camera, but there's no issue at all, and it is totally fine. Now, when I did look at this skate and took a really close look at it, you can see it almost looks like a little bit of that true cracking on that outer layer, and it kind of does look like it follows the carbon. I have had no issues with this. I haven't noticed it flexing anywhere. You can put all the pressure you want on this and it's not moving whatsoever. So I'm going to kind of lean on the side of this is just standard wear, and the outer material kind of flexing a little bit. That is pretty standard wear and not an area of concern for me whatsoever. And you can kind of see a little bit right there as well, but nothing on these has me worrying about durability. The tendon guards have a bit of flex to them, just stock, nothing's happening, they're not breaking. I also take care of my skates and my gear, if you couldn't tell, so I'm not kicking off with this at all, where I know a lot of people do. So this is staying totally good and everything is great. Other really nice part, and I do take, like I mentioned, good care of them, where I open them up, air them out, make sure the insoles are out. There is no rust anywhere on these. You can see all through here, no rust whatsoever. Again, I take care of my stuff. I let it air out. I dry it all off to make it really nice, but that is still an excellent result. And especially when we look at a skate like this, which was worn a lot less than these ones, and you can see the rust coming through the copper. And again, I take care of this gear and I air it out all the time, but that is just natural on these, where this one and the CCM has been fantastic with zero signs of issues of rust. Now going to really quickly touch on the holder and the steel itself. Holders, people are going to have preferences for. I have had zero issues with the XS. I love its ability for quick change. I've talked about it in the past. I have been swapping steel on this quite a lot because I've been testing some other steel and using some other steel as well as different profiles, and this has been totally good for it. Really easy to do on the bench. I find it easier than Bauer's because you can just do this and you don't have to kind of pull and push, so it's a nice earth system in that sense. Step Blacksteel is also, let's just be totally honest, probably the benchmark and the best stock steel there is. Yes, Bauer Pulse TI, whatever the new one is very good as well, and I had no issues with the true Blacksteel, whatever they're calling it as well. But Step was basically the first and most popular one that everyone really wanted originally, and then CCM now has exclusive basically on it. So it's really good, it's solid, there's no reason to change from it and upgrade from it. Yes, when you buy customs you're going to be paying extra for it versus a normal step steel, but it's fantastic and it's basically the benchmark, and it looks absolutely great. And I sharpen this all the time on my Sparks, and I've had a couple profiles put on it. The one thing I will say with this holder, and something I had to change, is it is a more neutral holder than what the Bauer Tukes or Tucks are. So normally Bauers are a little bit more like this. This one is more neutral. So one of the things I realized on this is I was having a bit of issues I felt like I was too much on my heels. So I did get my normal profile, which is a quad 1, but I did kind of slope it a little bit. So it is more aggressive. So it's a bit more of an angle to be more like a Tuck or Tuke, but it wasn't all the way, just a little bit more, just so I was a little bit more on the front of my foot versus the more neutral pitch of the XS. Easy thing to change with a profile. You kind of just get a feel of what you like and you dial it in. And now the part I hate the most talking about equipment is weight and kind of balance as well. I hate talking about weight. I'm not going to take a scale out to this to see how much it weighs. You don't need to chase hundreds of grams on skates. Your feet are used to pushing you around. As long as the weight isn't way off of the boot itself, you're going to have all that mass centered on your foot. Your foot does a lot of work for your body. Maybe people are going to be crazy and say, yes, this will make you this much faster. This skate is lighter than these two are. This one feels heavier. This one also feels heavier than what this one does. It's honestly not that much though. And when I put them on side by side, and I did do this, I did do one right foot, one left foot when actually playing to try the two out and to see the difference on them. I noticed no weight difference whatsoever when wearing them. And I did this with the FT1s and these. These were always considered a really heavy skate, and people always weighed them, said, oh, they're so many pounds, they're so heavy. I wore an FT1, which was ridiculously light compared to this. Once actually skating the whole time on the ice, and actually doing everything on the ice for like a whole game, because yeah, I did wear one on the one foot and one the other foot for the entire game, I had no issues with them. My one leg wasn't more fatigued, my one leg wasn't faster. It was just different skate. I will kind of say that again over and over and over and over again. These weights, they're all so light, and this feels fine and good that you don't have to chase things for it. It's solid for that. Balance, same thing. You don't really feel this weight down here. It doesn't feel way too blade heavy. It just feels like a well done skate, and it's pretty standard for that. So nothing nuts there. I am a huge fan that CCM still has their comfort edges on the side of their custom skates. True has never really had that, and it's caused issues, especially on my goalie skates. So I love that this is a thing, and you can feel it. Like, look how soft that is. It is nicer on your ankles, and it's just nicer overall. I like that feeling compared to what is on the True one. Now, I have felt softer ones before where it dips more and it has like that edge doesn't go all the way up there, but these have been really comfortable and I've liked it a lot. The liner, I can't remember what this liner was called, but it obviously isn't the stock retail one. The stock retail one has a pattern in it. This one is slightly different, so I think this was like kind of the pro option. I just asked the person who did this scan, what liner would you recommend me getting? They said this one, so I said, sure, go for it. I haven't noticed a massive difference when I did select liners between the two. I did that before in True Skates, where I would select this kind of retail light moisture wicking and then the pro one. I didn't notice a huge massive difference. Maybe my feet don't sweat all that much when wearing them, but I always notice them dry for the next game, so no issues whatsoever. This one I think was supposed to be a bit more durable, and you can see some wear in the tips right there, but that's the tongue wear. Overall fine. I would probably like to see this kind of extend a little bit more, just so that wear will kind of come down a little bit, but overall totally fine in that sense and works well with that. Same with the tendon guard. You do have a bit of a flexible tendon guard there. It's not super crazy stiff. I don't notice it when wearing it, but I have noticed in the past with like these ones, I sometimes feel these hit the top of my back of shin guards when you're kind of skating a lot. This one you don't notice at all, so I do like how it is a bit more flexible and kind of a bit more open. It just allows for more mobility back there, so it's a nice change. Now for obviously stiffness, CCM has, I think right now, 2 levels of skates you can order. I can't remember if you can do the ripcords anymore. When I bought these, you could do the ripcords. So you could do the 100Ks, these, and then FT, I think it was 4s at the time. And I said to them, well, I might as well go with the skate that's brand new. And they're like, yeah, do it. So I went with the skate that was brand new. My preference would have been a softer boot, because I really liked that FT1 skate and I could really feel the flex in the boot whenever I was skating. It really felt like it was attached to my foot and it was kind of flexing with my foot. It felt fantastic. I've never been able to replicate that whatsoever. The funny thing is when they said for flex, like, well, what skate are you in now? I said True. And he said, okay, you want the stiffest skate possible. And I'm like, okay. Went with this. And because people are like, yeah, that's like the closest comparison. Trues are really stiff. These honestly feel very different than what I've ever noticed in True. And I'm not sure if it's the stiffness of the skate or just how the like fit profile of it is. So the one thing with True skates is you can kind of always see, this one's not the best example because it's kind of the retail one, but like the bulge here and kind of how the sides kind of like pull in a lot to your foot, where this one is a lot more like retail looking skate and standard looking skate, where this doesn't like aggressively taper inwards. This is a great example of it because you can see how aggressive this ankle tapers in and how aggressive the top kind of tapers into your foot. And these are always a pain to get on and off. That's kind of very different than what this one is. So the thing I noticed on here, I'm not sure if it was stiffness or if it's just that kind of shape, but I did notice transitioning on these was a challenge and something that took me a bit to get used to. So one thing that I've always noticed different between like True skates and even the CCMs, like this one's a custom one, it's made pretty close to my foot and everything, is the Trues. And this one is actually less of a wrap compared to the full customs, but it really feels like the whole piece feels like it's part of your foot and there's no kind of middle part or bottom piece to it. While the CCM is a one-piece boot, and you can see it wrap here, it does feel more like a normal skate, where it still doesn't feel like your foot is all the way in the skate. It is, but it definitely does feel like there's a bottom part to it, where the True, to me, always felt like it just wrapped totally around your skate and didn't really have a flat bottom. Just a slight difference between the two. The big problem I had adjusting from one to the other was part of that stiffness part on the CCMs. Again, Trues are very stiff, but just how the skate is kind of shaped and everything and how it kind of sits on your foot. It felt like whenever I was making transitions, the biggest ones was skating backwards. So I play D. So skating backwards and making a transition to go skate forward again. I had a lot of hesitation on the CCMs because of this movement and how stiff the boot was and how little my foot is really moving in the boot and like flexing in the boot, because everywhere I go like this, the boot is just there. And so it felt like it was really restricting movements. Now add shin guards on top of that, which is gonna kind of stop a lot of this as well, that it felt like it was just so locked in that I really couldn't instantly move in that direction. And this is where I wore one on each foot in an actual game. I would try transitions this way with the trues, and it just felt much more natural, and it felt like the skate was moving with my foot a lot more. Where if I did it with this, with the CCM, like I mentioned, it kind of felt like it was fighting my natural movements and I had to adjust. Now, once I did that profile and went more on a forward lean, and I learned to trust the boot, because it did feel like the whole thing was kind of controlling my motions more than other skates. Once I learned to trust that, my pivots from backwards to forward became super natural and it felt totally normal, and it's not something I have an issue with. But the first, I'm gonna say 15 skates with this, I was skating backwards like this. I would go plant to pivot to go backwards, and it would just feel like I didn't have the trust in my skate, and I could actually move all the way because it felt like my skate was kind of fighting my ankle a bit, and it had that adjustment period. So something I've really noticed a difference between these skates compared to the trues and my like all other skates I honestly really used before. Now, one thing I talked about was flex on the jet speed, and what I don't feel here at all. Yes, these are stiff skates, but the thing I loved about the jet speed is when I would push out of corners and things like this, you could feel the whole boot flexing with you. So it wasn't just the lacing, it was the sides and everything. You would go and you would just feel the boot kind of flexing with your foot and moving with your foot. These are so stiff that you can't feel that flex at all. Now, you can't feel that whatsoever in the trues either. They feel very stiff and wrapped and everything. But that jet speed is something where I always kind of wanted to replicate that feel, but you don't on this. This one just feels like it's a really solid boot. So all that force is going in there. But I did like that feeling previously of where, like, whenever you would take a hard stride like this or push off, you'd feel it kind of flexing a little bit, moving more naturally with your foot. And then you could go. Where this one, it has its shape. You kind of have to work with that shape and then you go. Now, personally, I wish they did have an even softer option. I think they're going to do that in the future. I think it's going to be called like Jet Speed Flex. I'm not sure. I don't even know if they had a name for it when I talked to them at the time. I would love that FT1 kind of stiffness coming back in a custom skate so I could actually fit in it, because I loved how that felt. I loved how I could move in it, and it really felt like the skate was bending with my foot. It felt more like what people go for, that traditional like tech mesh for Bauer stuff, so that softer feeling skate. Felt fantastic when skating. I just felt like I was more connected to the ice, and it was kind of flexing with me how I wanted it to, and not just like the forward flex that companies are doing now, but actually like the boot was moving with my foot. It felt amazing. I haven't been able to replicate that because this is a very stiff boot. I hope in the future that will be an option, and maybe I'll buy one of those custom ones down the line if CCM offers that. For protection on this, I wear shot blockers, so it's a bit of I can't really talk about that much. I did keep them off for a few times just to try things, and you do feel a lot on them. Anything on here, actually especially down here, because I get that underneath skates a lot. So if I'm like turning like this and a guy hits me under the blocker, I feel it a lot. I noticed it a lot more than on my true skates. My true skates also had that built-in shot blocker, which I optioned on. These ones, I couldn't do that, but it just felt like the shell of this felt like it was closer to my foot than what was on the true, and it felt like more of that impact was going through there. Can't talk about the top, never took any on the top, thank you, because I hate taking shots off the top of the tongue. But you did definitely feel it through here, and it's not the best feeling in the world, but you're going to feel it no matter what, unless you go beefy with shot blockers and stuff, which I do. The other option on these, obviously, if you could see, which are pretty cool, was the color options. I wish there was more. Blue and pink, obviously, for my logo. Obviously, for my logo, I couldn't get the baby blue, so it was just this blue, but it absolutely looks fantastic, and I love that that's a custom option, and I love seeing that. Yes, Bauer is doing that too, but this is a great thing, and it's something I tried to do with True a lot as well. I wish there was more color I could put on here, but I know not everyone is a fan of that like I am, but you can also make these very nice and black too, so you have that option on there as well. So one thing I want to talk about too, so to these skates for the custom wraps, I mentioned previously on how the Trues really look like they're wrapping your foot. So you can see how this part kind of bulges out. You can definitely see how this part bulges out there, and it's very evident on that one, and you can see how it kind of dives in as well. The other part is the laces. So you can see how the eyelets are kind of flatter onto your foot, and when the actual tongue comes out and your foot's in there, you can really see how they're basically right up against your foot. And that's kind of the idea of these skates, and you can also see it with the top part up here as well. It really kind of dives in, and this is obviously unlaced. It does cause some problems getting your foot in. You gotta twist it, it's kind of a pain, but this is obviously unlaced, but a lot of this and the eyelets come as close as possible to your foot. This is obviously the true like TF custom, the top one. When you go to the cat, you can see it is not quite as wrapped. You still have the wrap on there and it's still not straight up. Same with right here. So this one is still wrapped, and this is done through their saran wrap method. But you can see how these eyelets are pretty close to kind of your foot and the tongue all the way through. There is some more gap here because this one isn't a total custom one, but you do have a little bit more of a traditional boot style on this. When you look at the CCM, you can see how there is that pretty significant difference. These are a lot less on the tongue and more sticking up. So even when that tongue's kind of all the way out, you can see the eyelets are more pointing outwards than they are upwards, and that should give you a pretty good idea right there. So this is definitely that more of a traditional skate kind of design, where True went with kind of speed skating-ish boot look thing, and it's a bit more wrapped. Same with up here. So when these are not tied, you can see how these are more pointing outwards, like straight forward, versus actually being tied in. Now, when you do tie these, and when I do, the tops kind of come in like this more. So the top wraps a bit more than what they do right now, but everything else is pretty straight up, and I do end up getting some like negative space down here, which isn't the biggest issue in the world, but it just shows you kind of the difference in idea. Again, even with some of this negative space and with how this isn't the most wrap at the top of the boot right here, the skate is still more comfortable than what either ones of these are. And it's not too big either. It's not like this is a 9th boot that I'm fitting into. To make them more comfortable, I had to do a few things with the insoles, but the comfort is still there. So even though that this thing isn't so aggressive on the foot and the ankles and the back part, and it looks a lot more like a traditional skate than what this does, it is extremely comfortable, but the wrap is slightly different, and we'll show it on as well to show you the difference between this one and. As you can see for the wrap, it is different compared to the True. The True really wraps over the top of the foot right here and more right here, where this is a lot more of a traditional skate where it's kind of more open at the top and open here too. This is me pulling this pretty tight too. Without me really cranking this, it stays a little bit more straight, where the True does wrap, but this is also the part of the baking process of True. You have to make sure this doesn't wrap more, because if you really tighten these like at all, I don't do the first 3 eyelets up whatsoever, so I leave them untied, then it would really wrap more. But you can see here how this is so much more folded over on my foot compared to here where the eyelets are pointing outwards. These are kind of pointing up. So a difference in wrap too, but this one honestly just feels like it fits just as well on my foot than what this one does. Maybe a little bit more space like kind of right here, but it doesn't really affect performance or feel or comfort. So if you couldn't tell already, I absolutely love these skates. I'm going to have a very hard time getting out of these on my own personal choices. If I get sent a pair to review and do stuff like that, yes, I will jump out of it, but I can't justify buying a new skate to get out of these because of how well these have performed once I dialed in that fit with the insole and with the tongue and really got them to be perfect for me. I am unbelievably happy wearing these all the time. I don't have to worry about foot pain anymore, which is not something I could say with those ones all the time, and not something I could ever say with retail skates. So I am an extremely satisfied. I didn't pay anything for these, but if I did, even if I paid $1,500, I think, which is what they are Canadian now, it would be worth it because I don't have to worry about my feet anymore. They're comfortable, and it's just exactly what I want in a skate. So maybe a little bit softer, but that's like really dialing in custom stuff. This is fantastic. I was worried in the past about the stories of people not having skates that actually fit and that they weren't really fully custom and really great. I have to just say that these have been so good to me that I have no problems recommending people to wear these skates. Now, I don't have elephant feet. I have slightly outside of retail feet. That doesn't quite fit a retail skate, but I don't have elephant feet. Maybe elephant feet people might not have as good as time in these compared to some others. I've seen some absolute boats out there, like literally as wide as long skates that maybe CCM wouldn't be able to dial in that for someone. For me, using these, it's been a wonderful experience where I'm just so much more comfortable in my skates. My feet don't bother me anymore, and I just don't have to worry about it, and it is absolutely fantastic. And I'm so excited that I don't have to bother about my player skates anymore. I still do in my goalie skates. I still have issues on both of my pairs of goalie skates. These have been absolutely fantastic, and it's really easy for me to recommend people to try these in custom. I've used them now. I've experienced them. Yes, there is some dialing fit stuff that you have to do or might have to do. It works. It's worth it. These skates are fantastic. Everything on these is fantastic. Huge thanks to CCM for sending these to me. Like I said, I'm really happy with these, and that speaks a lot with how many custom skates I've gone through in the past. And these ones are the keepers, and I don't want to get out of them ever. And that says a lot, even after over a year of use now, and they're not breaking down, and my foot's not getting uncomfortable in them. That's a huge praise for me, and I'm really, really happy. Huge thanks to CCM, obviously, for sending me these to do a review on. A little sorry it was delayed, but not really, because I feel like me with this time and using them, making sure they don't break down, making sure the durability is good, and they're still doing good like years down the line is more important than a quick video out, which you can see everywhere else. If this video was helpful and you want to see me review more content like this, and if this helped you towards CCM skates, please let CCM know on social media. Let them know that my little channel and stuff was helpful to you, and that the skate whole thing was totally worth it on their end. That'd be greatly appreciated. So hopefully I can do more reviews of gear in the future. Like if they come out with a soft one, I would love to review one of those, but I have a hard time again justifying getting out of these, so it is what it is. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've had any issues with your custom skates and what custom skates you're rocking and what you think about them. Great to hear feedback from other people as well. And maybe someone can help you, give you advice to help dial in your fit, so hopefully it works out as well as they have for me. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to like this video, subscribe to me on YouTube, hit the bell icon, even though I hate saying that. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, links are in the description. If you want to support the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews, and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, check out the links in the description. In Canada, hockey supremacy. In the US, to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase, it gives me a kickback so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out the links in the description to buy me a coffee. Everything through any of those links down there always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. Thank you very much to CCM. Thank you very much for watching this very long video. Take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.